When investigators first started putting the pieces together, the timeline was a mess. It felt like pure chaos. You had conflicting statements from witnesses, huge gaps in the story, and moments that just didn't make any sense at all. But as they laid out every piece of evidence, side by side, something started to shift. A pattern, faint at first, began to emerge from the noise. The very first clue, the one everyone had missed, was timing. It was all in the timing. Phone records, public sightings, witness accounts when they were all mapped out. These strange gaps appeared. These weren't just random moments of dead air. They were precise to deliberate. The actions that took place within this timeline happened with a level of accuracy that just couldn't be a coincidence. What originally looked like a jumbled mess of events now felt orchestrated, intentional. This forced the detectives to go back to square one. They had to question every single assumption they had made. Was the entire narrative they had built based on a faulty foundation? They started re-interviewing everyone, but this time, their questions were sharper, more focused. And that's when the small inconsistencies started to pop up. A slight change in wording from one interview to the next. A noticeable pause before answering a simple question. Details that shifted just enough with each retelling. On their own, these little discrepancies didn't mean much. But when you put them all together, they painted a picture of something far more calculated. Something was being hidden. With this new perspective, the investigation turned its attention to the physical environment. The locations connected to the incident had their own stories to tell. Security cameras, even the ones that seemed to show nothing, became crucial. They analyzed traffic flow patterns, checked weather reports from that day, and slowly, they began to reconstruct movements that had never been officially documented. It became terrifyingly clear that someone hadn't just been present at the scene. They had anticipated the entire sequence of events long before they ever happened. They knew the routes, the blind spots, the timing of everything. As whispers of these new developments started leaking to the public, the reaction was immediate and intense. Online forums exploded. Media outlets were dissecting every single update, spinning out theories that ranged from the surprisingly plausible to the downright bizarre. But the investigators, they remained cautious. They knew from experience that public pressure and speculation often do more to obscure the truth than to reveal it. They had to tune out the noise and focus on the facts. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Analysts, digging through old files, identified a recurring behavioral signature. It was tied to earlier, seemingly unrelated incidents. The similarities were subtle, almost unnoticeable if you weren't looking for them. A specific choice of timing, a consistent avoidance of any direct confrontation, and a chilling reliance on using routine and predictability as a form of camouflage. This wasn't the work of an impulsive person. It suggested a mindset that valued absolute control over chaos, a person who chose patience over impulse. This single realization completely shifted the direction of the investigation. The team was no longer asking, "What went wrong here?" Instead, they started asking a much more chilling question: "What went according to plan?" The difference was critical. It reframed the entire case. This wasn't a spontaneous, chaotic event anymore. It was a carefully constructed sequence shaped by incredible foresight and planning. But even with this massive shift, the biggest questions remained unanswered. The motive was a complete blank. And without a motive, any conclusion they reached would be pure speculation. The investigators knew they couldn't afford to rush. Every assumption needed solid proof. Every theory had to be rigorously tested and verified. As the pressure from the media and the public continued to mount, one truth became unavoidable. This case was no longer just about a single incident. It was about something much larger. It was about understanding how easily the ordinary patterns of our daily lives could be studied and manipulated. It was a lesson in how silence, when it's left unchecked and unexamined, can become its own form of powerful evidence. By this point, the investigation had crossed a line of no return. The mystery was far deeper and more complex than anyone had ever imagined at the beginning. Whatever truth lay at the end of this road, it was going to challenge not only the facts of the case, but the very assumptions people held about it from the very start. And as the search for answers continued, one question echoed louder than all the others, hanging in the air with a chilling weight. If all of this was planned, who on earth had the patience to wait for the perfect moment, and why? Thanks for watching. If you found this case as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next update. We'll be following this one very closely. See you next time.